Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you, it's about time. Finally, someone is waking up to the disaster. Leticia James she's now under a ton of pressure to come forward and explain just exactly why she was such a about that bond. Because apparently her reaction to him trying to pay that bond was, quote, unnecessarily for vexation, a judge has ruled. I have all the details on that story in this two-tier justice system, and I don't want to give false hopes, but it's important when there are these little victories along the way to take note. And we got a little victory that seemingly could be a very big victory happening there at the Supreme Court, as the Supreme Court is starting to say, what the heck, as far as those J6 protesters go? Why is it that you're not allowed to protest there on Capitol Hill as they did, and yet you are allowed to impede a vote on the budget as Jamal Bowman did? Remember that? Well, Supreme Court justices are asking those questions, and I got some tape I got to play for you. I am so excited to show you this because you know how much it irritates me that so many members of the Biden administration, so many members of Congress, and by the way, both sides are guilty of this, are out there investing in stocks when they have inside information about just exactly what's going down. Well, Senator Josh Hawley, he knows what's up, and he's going straight for the jugular on that energy secretary we have, Jennifer Granholm, who is not the brightest bulb. So we say, hello, welcome to all of you from Ireland, nonetheless. I am traveling. I missed seeing you yesterday, of course, but I'm on the road. I'm traveling. I wanted to get all this news in for you. I'm doing a little sightseeing with my family while I'm here. And importantly, I'm going to get to see some family members that I haven't seen since, oh gosh, I was 5 years old. Think about that. So lots of stuff coming forward. Make sure that if you haven't subscribed to my Instagram, go take out a look at my Instagram. I'm going to have some of this that I'm posting here on YouTube and of course on Facebook and all of these platforms. So thank you for that. This is the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish, live from Ireland. So good to see you. Mike O'Donnell, of course, with a name like that. O'Donnell, I'm betting you're Irish. Anyway, starting here today on the news, New York Attorney General Leticia James is going to have to explain just exactly why it was that she was so not willing to accept Donald Trump's $175 million bond. You see, she will never accept anything, let's be very clear. Anything that might be in any way advantageous, not that having to pay $175 million is, but this is Leticia James we're talking about. What I like is that some people are starting to call this out. So there is a company called Knight Specialty Insurance Company, KSIC, and it was, of course, and is legally permitted to post the bond for Donald Trump, and yet Leticia didn't want it. So think about that. I mean, she just didn't want it. And so now there's a hearing, April 22nd, after she basically made this ruckus about, well, we don't want this bond from this specialty insurance company. And I want to know this, and I want to know that, and I want to know how it's being securitized, et cetera, et cetera. So she's never happy. Is that the moral of the story? I mean, I guess she's just mad she didn't get the $500 million. Ladies and gentlemen, think of how insane this is. Absolutely, positively insane. $175 million? I mean, for goodness sakes. In a case where there's no damages whatsoever, Deutsche Bank got paid back in full and everybody made money on the deal? And this, frankly, ill-informed woman, highly political woman, is coming in, swooping in, trying to say, oh, no, this couldn't have been because you know what, Mar-a-Lago was worth this rather than that. She can't even get her Mar-a-Lago valuations right now. I mean, all you have to do is go on Zillow, maybe, or just go look at other past sales. It is so atrocious what's actually going on. Absolutely atrocious. But basically what's happening here now is that the Judge Arthur Engoron, I never say that right, set an April 22nd hearing after Trump's legal team filed a large amount of paperwork. They did this on Monday to prove that Knight Specialty Insurance Company was actually legally permitted to post the bond for Trump. But why is she doing this even? I mean, this is their business. And she's like, no, it's not good enough for me. Now, if he wins that case, James is going to have to pay the costs of the former president reapplying to the court with the new bond paperwork. I know it all sounds really, really complicated, but let me make it simple. Let me make it really, really simple. This woman is way out of her skis. Way out of her skis, and it is once again showcasing something that's pretty frightening, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the two-tier justice system in which we currently live here in the United States of America. Two-tier justice. In other words, if we don't like you, we're going to go after you with everything we can. We're going to destroy you. We're going to destroy your family. We're going to destroy your opportunity in the future. We're going to bankrupt you if you can, and we can. And by the way, if you want to run for president, good luck, because we're going to try and put you right behind bars. I mean, I actually think it helps him. You know my theory on that. I think it continues to help him. But this is what they're doing. And it is two-tier justice. It is. I'm going to get back to what's going on with Alvin Bragg, but first, major news. Absolutely major news, and this is not getting enough coverage. I think the Supreme Court of the United States of America is going to say, you know what? You guys who are going after these J6 protesters, you are out over your skis because you have absolutely no precedent to work on. Let me share with you an article from the New York Times. And hey, you know what? You don't have to take my word for it. The New York Times is even realizing this. Supreme Court appears skeptical of using obstruction law to charge January 6 rioters. And I quote from the article, the justices' questions considered the gravity of the assault and whether prosecutors have been stretching the law to reach members of the mob responsible for the attack. You think? It goes on. Mr. Trump's case, I quote, did not come up at the argument, which was largely focused on trying to make sense of a statute that all concerned agreed was not a model of clarity. But the justices' questions also considered the gravity of the assault and whether prosecutors have been stretching the law to reach members of the mob responsible for the attack. Justice Clarence Thomas, who returned to the bench after an unexplained absence on Monday, asked whether the government was engaging in a kind of selective prosecution. There have been many violent protests that have interfaced with proceedings, he said. Has the government applied this provision to other protests? And I think we know the answer to that, ladies. A little bit of an issue. Yeah, Rashida, she was out there, you know, getting everybody all riled up, and then they all marched on Capitol Hill, but crickets. Nobody said anything about that. I mean, granted, this was obviously a bigger deal, but if you're going to go on this law, this one particular law that they were obstructing a federal procedure, then don't you have to be kind of fair? Like, don't you have to apply it where you would apply it? I mean, wouldn't that actually mean that Jamal Bowman, when you pulled the fire alarm right ahead of the budget vote, wouldn't that actually mean that you were in a serious violation there? And yet, hey, nothing happened to him, right? I mean, party on. So, I want to share with you some sound. I believe this is Neil Gorsuch, Justice Gorsuch, asking this very question that all of them are hinting at. Because you know what? You can't have two-tier justice. You just can't. It's not what this country is about. Let's play.
Ought to be. Instead, we think the relevant similarity is obstruction of an official proceeding because that's the language Congress chose.
General, if that's the case, what work does authorize do on your theory? Because I think I might, as I'm hearing you, think that whoever corruptly obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so stands alone. And the otherwise, I'm not hearing what work it does. Can you explain to me what work it does on your view?
Yes. So the work that otherwise does is to set up the relationship between C1 and C2 and make clear that C2 does not cover the conduct that's encompassed by C1. Now, I acknowledge that there were
beyond saying, okay, C1 does some things, and the whole rest of the universe of obstructing, impeding, or or influencing is conducted by C2. Is that a fair summary of your view?
Yes, but there was a good reason for Congress to do it this way.
No,
it traces to the statutory history.
I understand
and
that.
I would just say that,
if I might, so what does that mean for the breadth of this statute? Would a sit-in that disrupts a trial or access to a federal courthouse qualify? Would a heckler in today's audience qualify, or at the State of the Union address? Would pulling a fire alarm before a vote qualify for 20 years in federal prison?
there are multiple elements of the statute that I think might not be satisfied by those hypotheticals, and it relates to the point I was going to make to the Chief Justice about the breadth of this statute. The kind of built-in limitations are the things that I think would potentially suggest that many of those things wouldn't be something the government could charge or prove as 1512c2 beyond a reasonable doubt, would include the fact that the actus reus does require obstruction, which we understand to be a meaningful interference. So that means that if you have some minor disruption or delay or some minimal outburst, we don't think it falls within the actus reus to begin with. My outbursts
require the court to reconvene after the proceeding has been brought back into line, or the pulling of the fire alarm, the vote has to be rescheduled, or the protest outside of a courthouse makes it inaccessible for a period of time. Are those all federal felonies subject to 20 years in prison?
So with some of them, it would be necessary to show nexus. So with respect to the protest outside the courthouse, we'd have to show that, yes, they were aiming at the proceeding.
Yeah, they were trying to stop the proceeding.
Yes, and then we'd also have to be able to prove that they acted corruptly, and this sets a stringent mens rea. It's not even just the mere intent to obstruct. We have to show that also, but we have to show that they had corrupt intent in acting in that way.
We went around that tree yesterday.
I know. I heard the argument yesterday, but I guess what I would say is that to the extent that your hypotheticals are pressing on the idea of a peaceful protest, even one that's quite disruptive, it's not clear to me that the government would be able to show that each of those protesters had corrupt intent.
So mostly peaceful protest that actually obstructs and impedes an official proceeding for an indefinite period would not be covered?
Not necessarily. We would just have to have the evidence of intent, and that's a high bar.
They intend to do it, all right.
Yes, if they intend to obstruct and were able to show that they knew that was wrongful conduct with consciousness of wrongdoing, then yes, that's a 1512c2 offense. And
what does corruptly add, in your view?
So corruptly adds the requirement that the defendant's conduct be wrongful and committed with consciousness of wrongdoing. And this traces to the court's decision in Arthur Anderson, where the court said this is a term with deep historical roots, with a settled meaning, and that it connotes not just knowledge of your actions, which is, the intent to obstruct in this case, but further requires that it be done corruptly. And just to give you a more concrete example of how this has played out in the January 6 prosecutions, I'd point to the jury instruction in the Robertson case, which we refer to and quote in part on page 44 of our brief. There, the jury was instructed that in order to show the defendant acted corruptly, the jury had to conclude that he had an unlawful purpose or used unlawful means or both, and that he had consciousness of wrongdoing. So I think that that is an encapsulation of what the jury is asked to decide on top.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't think the justices are buying it. I think that they see very clearly how this can get manipulated one way or another. People think they're showing up for a peaceful protest and, they want to have their voices heard, etc. And the next thing you know, they're 20 years behind bars in jail. And then there's Representative Tom Bowman, who absolutely knew, Jamal Bowman, forgive me, he absolutely knew what he was doing. He knew he was going to delay the budget vote when he pulled the fire alarm. Heck, we'll get it on tape. He's removing the warning signs and pulls the fire alarm. And yet nothing happens to him. Nothing happens to Rashida's supporters when they storm Capitol Hill. I mean, how do you apply the law evenly if that's the case? If you're going to just say, okay, well, you obstructed this, and therefore, this is going to be something. And I'm telling you, it's all going to come undone. It's unraveling bit by bit by bit, which is why, ladies and gentlemen, they're so freaked out about what we're seeing in New York City right now. In New York City with Alvin Bragg. Before I get to that, a quick shout out for our very good friends at a group of people that know how serious this is. I'm talking about Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org, wonderful group. They know what we're all up against here. And they've made it very clear. Like, okay, you know, if Donald Trump gets the White House, great. But you need more than that. You need more than that, America. You need the Senate. You need the House. You need smart people in smart places making smart decisions about our future, because this is a very frightening, frankly, frightening environment that we're living in right now, where one way is the only way. And if you dare to suggest anything else, suddenly you're the authoritarian. I mean, the idea that they're calling Trump the authoritarian, I have to not be too loud. I'm not in my regular studio today. But the idea that they're calling Donald Trump the authoritarian, that he's the one who's going to get rid of free speech, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, whoa, people. No. That's exactly what this administration has already begun to do. And that's exactly what they're doing with all of these lawsuits. And so all their money right now is on Alvin Bragg. Because look what's happening. Jack Smith's case, it's falling apart by the day. Fannie Willis, the corrupt Fannie Willis down in Fulton County, Georgia. And you know what? I'm going to editorialize and say she's corrupt. Some people might say she's allegedly corrupt. But I'm sorry, when you're hiring your boyfriend and you're paying him $600,000 a year, and you don't think that we're supposed to think that you're not benefiting from that, I'm not buying it. So you got Fannie Willis down there. I mean, all of them. And so all the effort now, Leticia James, her whole thing has fallen apart. I started the show with that. She's got no real shot because the appellate court is going to send her packing. That is probably, and I say this as a business reporter, the weakest case that was brought against her. I mean, they're all weak, but that one was just glaringly weak. I mean, can you imagine? Think about it. You want to get a home equity line of credit on your house, and you fill out all the forms, and the bank has to send an appraiser and see if your house appraises, see if they're going to even do this deal with you. And they make the decision that, you know what, you're a good credit risk, and they're going to do the deal. And then all of a sudden, out of the woodwork comes law enforcement saying, we don't think your house was really worth that, so you guys never should have done that deal. Come on. And then they want to charge you $500 million. I mean, it's just sickening, absolutely sickening. So Alvin Bragg is the only hope they have of doing something. And the only reason they have a chance at all is because you have such a politically biased group of jurors there in New York City. I mean, overwhelmingly, more than 80% of the city voted against Donald Trump. They don't really like him in New York City. I mean, maybe they're mellowing out. Maybe they're thawing out these days, given what's happened on the immigration front, given what's happened on the economic front, given that they get new taxpayer dollars because everybody's leaving New York. Well, maybe, but I doubt it. So they're struggling to find a jury. And here's the craziest thing of all. Even if they find a jury, and if that jury doesn't deliver the conviction that they want, they're already preparing. Listen to some of the sound that's out there in the media. They are already preparing, ladies and gentlemen, to tell you that that was bogus and that was fake. I mean, Sunny Houston, that lovely rocket scientist over there at The View, who's very proud of her legal qualifications or background, I find it quite skeptical. But Sunny Houston on Disney-owned ABC's The View, talking about how this is just so exciting. It's like her Super Bowl. But of course, only if she gets the jury that she wants.
No, I'm not trumped out at all.
I am so trumped out.
This is a legal nerd's Super Bowl, right? Like, I'm kind of excited about this.
That's the part I need to do.
But that's exciting to someone like me because, you know, the 50 people said, I can't even be impartial, which I admire them for their forthrightness and their honesty, because you have to be honest when you're a juror. But I still believe that they will be able to find an impartial jury. They are never going to find someone that doesn't know about the former twice impeached loser president, right? They're never going to find that. But what I did find also interesting about my Super Bowl is that the legal teams will be checking the jurors' social media profiles to see if they can assess the truthfulness and intention of what they said during voir dire, which is their questioning. And I think that's really, really important, because if you start liking Trump's and you follow Trump stuff on social media, can you be impartial? I don't really think so. And I think what could happen in a case like this is if you have someone, and we were talking about this morning, someone named Clay Travis is sort of telling people to get onto that jury. You get one person that sneaks onto that jury with untoward feelings, that person can hang that jury.
How do you sneak onto a jury? You have to be close.
Well, you lie. You lie. You say, I hate Trump. But I can be impartial, and I this and that, and then all of a sudden, that's the person.
Who are they going to find a jury of his peers? How many bloated orange psychos out there?
Yeah. So
Okay, you see where this is going. If they don't get what they want, you know what they're going to say. They're going to say, oh, well, that was a corrupt jury. MSNBC echoed this as well. This Representative Dan Goldman, who can't stop carrying the administration's water. It's actually kind of amazing. He just keeps carrying buckets of it for Hunter and for Joe Biden. Well, Dan Goldman went on MSNBC and said this about the whole jury selection.
I also wanted to ask you just about the jury selection process. We all learned a lot. I became fascinated by the jury selection process today. Who knew? Did anything stick out to you about the number of people who pulled themselves out of it, or the length of the questionnaire? Anything surprising to you?
Well, it's always interesting when people self-select their own biases. You know, I've sat for jury duty as a former prosecutor, and I actually had a judge ask me, say, are you sure you can be fair and impartial? Which I found insulting. Of course I can be fair and impartial. Just because I'm a prosecutor does not mean that I can't look at the facts and the evidence like anybody else would. And so I wonder who is actually pulling him or herself out because of bias. Is it bias against Trump? Is it bias for Trump? It's very hard to tell. But I am glad that there will be an exhaustive voir dire of the jurors, because I do think that the sanctity of the jury pool is going to be vital in this trial. This is going to be a model for many Americans as to how criminal trials work, how our country's rule of law operates, and how no person, whether the former president or anyone else, is above the law. Donald Trump will be treated as any other defendant will be. All of his politicization and his partisanship and his campaigning outside of the courtroom will not be allowed in the courtroom. The only thing that will come in will be facts and evidence according to the rule of law, and these jurors will ultimately decide whether or not the evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump committed these crimes. That's what our great system is based on. And so now that the trial is actually beginning, as someone who did a number of trials, I'm excited for the American people to actually see how this process should work and why it should apply to Donald Trump and everyone else in this country, no matter their stature or power.
Okay, I have to jump in. So poor Goldman. You know, they must give him the script. He just goes out there and he does it over and over and over again. But here's the thing. No, Donald Trump is not being treated the same as anybody else in this country. I mean, unless you want to say really and truly that's how bad it is. And that quite possibly is the situation. In which case, you know that Trump is going to be able to campaign all day long and say, look, it happened to me. It can happen to you. And this is how you get the middle of America, ladies and gentlemen, because middle America doesn't like seeing any of this. Not one single bit. Can you imagine if they went after Joe Biden like they're going after Donald Trump? And there's some there. But they're not doing it. They're not doing it because he's one of the team, right? He plays on their side. You get a guy like Trump who doesn't play on anyone's team other than hopefully America's. Right? That's what we want. That's what we need. And suddenly, persona non grata. So he's had it. He made that very clear. Let's listen to Donald Trump just sounding off at the inequity of this two-tiered system that is quite disfavorable to anyone the system doesn't like. Watch.
Thank you very much. This is a trial that should have never been brought. It's a trial that is being looked upon, looked at all over the world. They're looking at it and analyzing it. Every legal pundit, every legal scholar said this trial is a disgrace. We have a Trump-hating judge. We have a judge who shouldn't be on this case. He's totally conflicted. But this is a trial that should never happen. It should have been thrown out a long time ago. If you look at Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, all great legal scholars, there's not one that we've been able to find that said this should be a trial. I was paying a lawyer and marked it down as a legal expense. Some accountant, I didn't know, marked it down as a legal expense. That's exactly what it was. And you get indicted over that? I should be right now in Pennsylvania, in Florida, in many other states, North Carolina, Georgia, campaigning. This is all coming from the Biden White House because the guy can't put two sentences together. He can't campaign. They're using this in order to try and win an election, and it's not working that way. It's working the opposite way. So check that out. Legal expense. It's called legal expense. That's what you're supposed to call it. Mr. Trump, you get indicted on that. Nobody's ever seen it. Nobody has ever seen anything like it.
It's true. Nobody has. Nobody's seen anything like this. The viciousness by which they are going after him is atrocious. And it's entirely possible, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to sugarcoat this because you get a jury there. If they're going to pick a jury that I know they're having lots of problems. A couple of jurors got tossed today because, they got their issue. I mean, they're going to have trouble, believe me, with this jury. And I know that nobody's going to be happy, but this is disturbing to me because I came across this clip of a woman who I'm guessing you probably don't watch. I'm doing this for you, okay? That's part of the benefit here. Joy Reid over on MSNBC. And what she had to say about this particular case and how she thought that New Yorkers, and she made this, of course, racial because this is the go-to place, right? I mean, it's just really despicable, pathetic, disgusting kind of rhetoric. But this is what she did, and I want you to hear it because you got to know what we're up against right now. This is Joy Reid on MSNBC talking about how this jury of New Yorkers is going to take him down. Watch.
Rikers is not.
And let me just bring Joy into that as well, because we've discussed this many times. A lot of the largest prison systems in America for incarceration are housing people who are awaiting trial, as Chris alluded to, Joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that Alvin Bragg has actually done that a lot of progressives have been happy about is a lot of those prisons are also housing, they're the new housing for the mentally ill. Rather than actually dealing with issues of mental illness in our cities, we're using prison and jail for that. But to the point that you all were just making, I mean, one of my favorite facts about one of Donald Trump's lawyers, Susan Michelis, is that one of her former clients was the notorious New York mobster Benny Eggs. And I will just assume and presume that old Benny Eggs was not attacking the judge. So Donald Trump is at this point outdoing actual mobsters in his attacks on the judge's families, the daughter, and he's doing it to the point that Lawrence made. He knows he will never spend a day, a second, a moment in prison. But for me, there is something wonderfully poetic about the fact that despite the fact that even if convicted, he's not going to go to prison, the first person to actually criminally prosecute Donald Trump is a black Harvard grad, the very kind of person that his former staff, the people who worked for him, Stephen Miller, et cetera, want to never be at Harvard Law School. But he was. And he came out and graduated, and he's prosecuting you, Donald. And a black woman is doing that same exact thing in Georgia. And a black woman forced you to pay a $175 million fine that's out now also in question because the people who put it up, that might not be legit. Donald Trump is being held to account by the very multicultural, multiracial democracy that he's trying to dismantle. And for me, there's something poetic and actually wonderful about that. It says something good about our country that we're still capable of having that happen. Go DEI. My DEIs are bringing it home on today.
Go DEI. Did you guys hear that? I'm just looking at your reactions. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a sad moment in time. You like to think that we in the United States of America have gotten away from all that, that we're bigger than that, we're better than that we actually value people for people, that we are a meritocracy, that we're living up to the spirit and faith of Martin Luther King Jr. And then you hear a woman like that say such horrid things and reduce everything to color. That's a problem. It's a huge problem. I have some incredible sound I want to play for you because there's another woman who's a problem. And this has nothing to do with color. This has everything, however, to do with corruption. Because I find it appalling that these people, these lawmakers, are getting briefed on all kinds of really, really important information, and yet they're still out there trading stocks. We're going to talk about Jennifer Granholm. We're going to talk about Josh Hawley and how he just took her down in a really epic way. But before I do, I want to just give a plug for my friends over at Balance of Nature. Balance of Nature, you know the company. I talk about them all the time. 1-800-246-8751. You know, I'm working for you guys because there was a $10 off code that you could get, and then they were going to take it away. And I went, no. They need the $10 off. So if you're going to get this, make sure you use code word Trish, 35% off, plus the extra $10 off, plus free shipping. I take my fruits and veggies. In fact, I have them with me. I'm traveling, I'm on the road, and I'm still taking them. And I think that this is really, I feel great. I feel really, really great. And I think this is a big part of it because I'm getting all the things that I probably wasn't getting before. I mean, look, I try and eat right, have a balanced diet, get my exercise, etc. I do all that. But reality is, you know what? As much as I may try, I'm probably not getting as much vitamin C, as much vitamin D, a few other things that you would naturally get through fruits and vegetables. So I feel really fortunate to have started with these guys. Balance of Nature, 1-800-246-8751 if you want to give them a call. If you want to go online, they got all kinds of terrific testimonials. Go check them out there online at balanceofnature.com. Use my name because you're going to get, I don't think anybody else has that right now. They were just going to do the 35% off them. No, I want the extra $10. So I made sure that you guys would get that. Check it out. I think you're going to love it. I love it. Turning to this incredible exchange that no one is talking about. And I am telling you, this is amazing. It is so on point. And kudos to Josh Hawley for bringing this up. I get it. You know, it's easy as a senator to say, well, you know, I can make money on stocks too, whatever. And both parties, let me be very clear, have been guilty of this. Well, Senator Hawley had none other than the former Michigan governor, now Secretary of the Energy Department, Jennifer Granholm, former MSNBC anchor too, for those of you that care. She came to Capitol Hill and he let her have it. I mean, this is epic. I want to play the whole thing because it's just that good. We got to watch this together. Let me know what you think in the chat. Here we go. Drew, let's cue the tape.
When you were here last, I talked with you about the fact that more than 130 officials in the Energy Department reported more than 2,700 trades of shares, bonds, and options in companies that ethics officers said was directly related to the agency's work. This is institutionalized corruption. And I asked you point blank, do you own any individual stock? And you told me, no. Let's just look at it. It was not a difficult question. Do you own individual stocks, Madam Secretary? You said no. In fact, you repeated it 3 times to me. No, no, no. Turns out that was false. You did own multiple individual stocks, and you neglected to report it to this committee for months afterwards. Why did you mislead this committee?
Oh, my goodness.
That was exactly my response. So why did you mislead this committee?
I believed that I had sold all individual stocks, and I was incorrect. So I came back.
You just don't know your portfolio?
Pretty much.
It's a big one, I guess, huh?
No, it's extremely small.
Apparently not. Someone manages it for you?
So I came back as soon as I found out that, in fact, I had not sold all individuals.
Wait. No, that's not true either. Let's just look at the timeline. Let's not, I just remind you, you're under oath. Madam Secretary, you testified you didn't own any individual stocks. You didn't sell the stocks for a whole nother month. And after you sold the stocks, you waited another month before you informed this committee. Why did you mislead us, and what were you hiding? Why did you wait so long? Why did you hide this?
I did not hide it because I brought it forth to the committee when I realized that we had made a mistake.
Really? What explains the delay? Why did you wait for a full month to explain your actions to this committee, your false testimony?
That's less than a month, and I sent a letter explaining what had happened.
May the 15th to June the 9th. Are we
because I owned a Ford stock that was...
You misled this committee, and you wait. What were the stocks? What were the stocks that you owned?
It was a Ford stock that my husband had owned since he was very young, and I just was not aware of it.
And what were the others? You sold 6 stocks. What were the other 5?
I sold non-conflicting stocks.
What were they?
Honestly, I don't even know. I do know the Ford one because that was a conflict.
You don't.
That's why I raised this.
You're here before this committee a year later after actively misleading to us, after denying and delaying, and now you won't tell us. Was one of them Proterra?
No.
You sat on the board of directors at Proterra. You made millions, CNN reports, and stock options at Proterra. Then you promoted Proterra stock and Proterra products as energy secretary. Was that one of the stocks that you sold?
This is so, I mean, really.
Was that one of the stocks that you sold? Yes,
no,
really.
No.
You are presiding over institutionalized corruption in your energy department. You have violated the Stock Act 9 separate times. You have been referred by the Inspector General for violations of the Hatch Act. It is institutionalized corruption that you are now the face of. And here's what I'm trying to figure out. I just want to know who really runs the energy department. Is it you, or is it the mega corporations whose stock that you own that you're making profits in?
Oh, my goodness.
Or maybe it's the foreign billionaires who fund your conferences. Let's try something else. Do you know the names of the foreign billionaires who fund the conferences you go to? Since you don't know the stocks, do you know the names of the foreign billionaires?
This is unbelievable to me.
Let me help you.
Mr. Chairman.
One of them is Hans-Georg Weiss, a Swiss billionaire who has used various dark money front groups.
I do not know what you are talking about.
Various dark money front groups to funnel foreign money into American politics. He has used the Burger Action Fund, $20 million, that then sent money to the Fund for a Better Future, that then sent money to the Climate Power Group that has funded conferences you've attended. Do you know who this is? Do you think it's a good idea to attend conferences funded by foreign billionaires?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't know the stocks, you don't know the billionaires, you would take no responsibility. Meanwhile, your energy department, executives in your energy department are trading stocks in companies that they have direct oversight over, and you were too.
That is incorrect. Nobody
and
I in the Department of Energy, and we have a strong ethics office, does not trade stocks in anything that they have oversight over.
That
People
is
may own
simply not
stocks.
true, Madam Secretary.
The
Wall Street Journal has reported on this extensively.
Wall Street
If
Journal.
I may, Senator, if I may just ask the question, is it possible that maybe we can continue this at a later time, but if you had any questions on the direct energy policies?
Mr. Chairman, this is directly relevant to institutionalized corruption in the Department of Energy that she oversees. You're, I think, about to say that the Wall Street Journal report's wrong.
The Wall Street Journal report did not say that people over whom they were in areas where they were directly overseeing had stocks. They did not. Our ethics office consults with all of our employees that need to be that have a reporting requirement about their stock holdings. They do not own stocks in areas that they have any influence over.
I'm going to just make it simple.
Nor do I.
Hey, Jenny, don't own any of them. Okay, let's make this really, 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 really simple. You cannot own any energy stocks. Okay, no oil stocks, no nat gas stocks, and no green energy stocks. And by the way, while we're at it, no EV stocks, no car stocks, nothing that would have anything to do with the sphere of influence that you so have. I mean, this is easy stuff, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is nobody actually, there's some credit to Josh Hawley, nobody actually wants to have these conversations. You saw Manchin jump in trying to save the day, trying to save her, the lady in distress, because she's getting called out over this stuff. Listen, we need to call them out over this stuff. This is not a bright woman. She doesn't understand energy policy, and she is our Secretary of Energy. And you know how I know she doesn't understand energy policy, aside from the fact that she was an MSNBC anchor? You know what? She told us she didn't understand it. Let's watch. Oh, I love this one. It's really short. My friend Tom Keene, whom I used to work with over at Bloomberg Television, does a morning show there. He brought her on right after she had become the energy secretary. And just watch this, you guys. She's laughing like a freaking hyena when he asks her what the Grand Home Plan for Energy is. I mean, you're the energy secretary, lady. You mean to tell me you got nothing?
In Sturgis, Michigan, it is $2.89 a gallon. I guess that's better than in California. What is the Grand Home Plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God. That is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. As you know, of course, oil is a global market. It is controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC, and they made a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already planning.
I see. And there's no way that you could possibly have any influence on that. I don't know, say by drilling here at home. Oh my gosh. Like, someone teach her Econ 101, please, fast, soon, now. And no, she absolutely should not be able to profit off of this stuff. No one there in Washington, D.C. should be able to profit off any of this stuff. This is why we need more accountability. We need more people, you and me, speaking up here. It's important. It really is. Listen, it's part of the reason why I created 76 Research. I know I've told you guys that before, but I'm telling you, because you've got so much corruption on so many different levels. And it's just so critical that we cut through that noise so that you understand how to prepare for the future. What do you want in your retirement? You want to be able to live comfortably without a whole lot of stress. You want to make sure you're getting some income off of your investments, and you want safe investments. So this was a big part of what we put together. Rob Horton, my longtime friend, who's managed billions of dollars on Wall Street, I convinced him, we sat down and I said, there's a whole different way to do this. Let's blow up the business model. Let's do something totally different where we can do it on a mass scale, but we're providing that level of quality research that you would get on Wall Street in those inside sort of, the back alleys, so to speak, where you're paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for this stuff. I'm like, wait a second, we can do this, and we can do this differently. We can do this more cheaply on a bigger scale, thereby providing you guys with the same quality research that all these fancy schmancy outlets are getting, but in a way that's more affordable and more digestible. So I'm proud of this venture. I really am. I'm just thrilled with this. It's called 76research.com. We just came out with the last 76 report. There's various model portfolios in there. There's an income building portfolio. There is a growth, American resilience portfolio. There's also an inflation protection portfolio, all kinds of good stuff. Do me the favor of checking it out. I usually put it here in the notes. Let me see if I can manage to do that here in our chat. I have a big night planned and a big weekend planned because, like I said, I'm going to see family in Southern Ireland. I am so excited. I really, really am. I'm going to be seeing some Irish dance tonight. How about that? And enjoying some music and the food and the people. I got to tell you, people are so friendly here. They're just so friendly. And, I've always known that about Ireland, but it's no joke. We Irish, we're good stock. Right, Mike O'Donnell? I think I see a few more Irish names in there as well. Hey, Don, good to see you back here as well. I will be checking in with you guys. Listen, this is an important time. Make sure that you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share. And I'll see you soon.